All right, my name's Bill Conklin. We're going to start with the Veteran Services. How many of you are veterans? Could I ask that question? One? Wow, okay. Well, that's about right. There are, just for your interest, about 350 veterans in the town of Norfolk. And that's veterans who register themselves as veterans on the town census that's done every year. And that number is dropping. It was 400 a year ago, it's 350. And that's true of the veterans population in the whole country. The massive amount of veterans right now are Vietnam veterans. And if you're old enough to remember that conflict, everybody went in for a short period of time. Everybody, millions of men. They're out now. They're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. The World War II guys, there's very few of those left. There's a couple in town. Bucky is one of them, if you know who Bucky is. He's 99. And the wars since then have been fought by fewer number of people, but they keep going back. So the Desert Storm people and the Iraq War and Afghanistan War have been fought by volunteers. It's not a mass induction. And they unfortunately have gone back to that theater several times. So we're using the same people to fight these long wars that we have. So as a consequence, the population's going down. And that's a good thing. It's good because veterans have lots of issues. So the fewer veterans we have, the fewer issues we have as a country to take care of. All right, let me move on. Push the down button. Okay, there's a veteran service officer, theoretically, in every city and town in Massachusetts, and that's per state law, chapter 115. If you're in a small town, you're permitted to have a part-time veteran service officer, which is what I am. If the town's under 12,000 people in population, we're allowed to have a part-time veteran service officer. If you're more than 12,000, you should have a full-time veteran service officer. And what towns have done, now when you have a full-time person, you're talking, mid-$70,000 of salary. And there's not enough veterans work here to justify that, so fortunately we have a part-time situation. Larger cities like Franklin have a full-time person and some secretarial assistants. Cities with a large veteran population like Boston will have several people on the payroll handling that large quantity of people. The cities and towns, the small towns, are getting around that. For example, the next census will clearly be over 12,000 people, and so we are allowed to have districts where we might merge with Franklin, for example, or any other town that we care to that's adjacent, and that way we'll keep the cost reasonable for the service that's needed to be provided. Our mission is to provide assistance and advocacy to our local veterans, and I'll get into the details of that in a second. I am your veteran service officer, and I have been for about 15 years. If you want to see me, you call for an appointment. You can call my cell phone number, which I have on me all the time, and I answer always. You can call me or text me. I will ask you a few questions. We'll have a brief conversation. Then I'll suggest that we meet in Town Hall. There's a small office there that I can use that's private, and we can have a more detailed conversation. Or you can call me at this other number, which is a landline in my home, which I never answer, but there is a voicemail on it, so I pick that up and get back. Email is billconklin@comcast.net, and as I said, we'll either meet at Town Hall or at your home. And I'm a little particular about that because I've gone to some homes, opened the front door, and said, "Oh God, I don't want to go in there." It's grim. And so one of my requirements now is that there is a woman, a wife, living in that home, because at least she understands air quality hygiene and cleanliness. Otherwise, sometimes I put myself at risk. There's a reason women should live longer than men, by the way. So, two things here. This is where we get into the weeds a little bit. We advise and aid on the federal VA claims. And I'm going to mention in a second that there's the federal level and the state level, and they're very different. The federal level is an incredibly complicated thing that offers many, many services to veterans. Services that aren't of much interest to you, such as, depending on your age, college. There's a GI Bill that I used, and now there's a new GI Bill, which is tremendous. So any young veterans are interested in that. There's also mortgages. VA loans allow you to get a mortgage at a very reduced down payment, and they guarantee the loan to the provider. And that's something that I don't see much of because there's not that many young veterans here. And then the other things tend to be medical. That's a very large operation that the VA maintains. And in this area, we have several hospitals, and we're blessed by being in Boston, which has the world's best medical standards and personnel. And the VA hospitals in this area are well served by that sort of influx of people, of medical people. The other thing that the VA is very much involved in is service-connected disabilities. And that's a very large part of my job. The state, on the other hand, the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has what we call, the jargon in our industry, Chapter 115, which is essentially financial assistance, writing checks to qualified veterans and their widows. And to be qualified, there's a number of things that you have to show me in terms of documentation. One of the first questions I have is, are your assets $8,000, if you're an individual, $8,000 or more? If they are, then you're not qualified for this assistance. And I'm sure everybody's staggered with, $8,000 is not a lot. Now, it does not include your home, and it does not include an automobile. But if you have anything else, it pretty much denies you. It tends to be people with only Social Security as a means of income. In this town, I've had as many as 6 and as few as 1. And Norfolk is an affluent suburb, and that's not unusual. If you get into densely areas, Springfield, something like that, where there's a lot, where the demographic is much different than here, then there might be a lot of people qualify for that. They would tend to be in community housing. So I searched through community housing looking for people that might qualify. Medical care, again, that's the biggest thing that the VA can offer people of our age. And as you get older, it's more important. There's 3 great hospitals here, West Roxbury, which is fairly easy to get to. And it's just above, it's on the VFW Parkway. You can take 109 and go right there and turn, and you're there. So that's an easy place to get to. There's Jamaica Plain, which is deeper into Boston and much more difficult for our veterans to get to, but there is a shuttle from West Roxbury to Jamaica Plain every half hour, so that's not a problem. And then as an alternative, there's the Brockton VA Hospital, which you have to take a car to drive to. The great thing about VA medical care is that it's free hospital care and free doctors. You do have to pay co-pays for prescriptions if you can afford them, and if you can't afford them, then those are free as well. The care is great. I just had a personal experience with it, and I'm very happy with it. I also tell veterans that when you sign up for VA medical care, You can keep your private care. They work in parallel. So you don't have to give anything up. You do have to make the visit to a primary care doctor at the VA just like you do to your primary care doctor. But that's the only sort of differentiating, or I'll call it the only other burden. And after that, you can just do them simultaneously. In my case, I used to say, the VA hospital's great, go there. I wouldn't go there for open heart surgery or brain surgery, but I go there for everything else. Well, I went there for open heart surgery, and I was greatly pleased. And but I did go to the private care doctor to get a second opinion. So, the nice thing about that experience was I never saw an insurance requirement for insurance forms. I never saw anybody stepping behind a doctor about whether they're going to allow that procedure or not. And I never saw a bill for a doctor that walked in and said hello once, and an anesthesiologist or somebody else that walked through my room. I just didn't see any of that. And that's a nice feeling. The other major thing that the VA provides to veterans is service-connected compensation. And what that means is while you were in the service, if you experienced an injury, then that injury, if later on justified, and that's another story, as being service-connected, that the VA will adopt you for that particular issue. It will also compensate you financially for that issue. And they award it in increments of 10%, 20, 30, 40, up to 100%. And for a 10% service-connected veteran, he will get about $175 a month. If you're 10%. If you're 100%, you get like $3,700 a month. It's $3,700 something a month. And that's pretty substantial. And that allows those. Now, you never want to trade that money to have 100% disability. That's not the question. But if you do have that, and if you are registered with that, then you essentially can maintain yourself in a relatively decent standard. And we have people in Norfolk who have 100%. Another thing that's becoming very interesting is aid and attendance. As we get older, as you're taking care of an older parent and their quality of life has deteriorated, and you now find yourself spending all your time taking care of that person because they've lost the ability to maintain hygiene, lost the ability to feed themselves, lost the ability to be mobile. Those kind of criteria, if that's the patient we're talking about, the veteran patient we're talking about, the VA will offer some aid and attendance. Some of it's financial, some of it's payment to the family member who's giving all this aid. If any of you have been a caregiver, you understand what that's about. Very difficult to get, lots of documentation, lots of forms, and a lot of bureaucracy. The VA has got tons of bureaucracy, and it's my job to help you swim through that. And I'd like to mention that our town gives you some real estate tax exemptions. If you 10 to 99% service-connected disability, you get $400 off your tax a year. If you have 100%, you get $1,000 off your taxes a year. And if that applies to any of you, all you have to do is see the assessor, Chris, up at the assessor's office, and she can rattle through that and have you have that taken care of. I'd like to talk to burials now. They're eventually all going to die, veterans, and they have some choices. They can just have themselves buried wherever they want to be buried at their own expense. They can also be buried at Bourne, which is a national cemetery on the Cape. And there's 2 Massachusetts state cemeteries. One's in Agawam, which is on the Connecticut border near Springfield. The other's Winchendon, which is on the New Hampshire border, sort of above Fitchburg. In the National Cemetery, you have to be dead first before you can make your reservation to be buried there. Now, that sounds a little weird, but that's the way it is. So I hope that's not me, is it? Okay. So the undertaker is a person who can handle that. They are trained to handle that. They love to handle that because there's some compensation for them. And so that's not a real hardship. If you're cremated, that's no problem at all to wait for that process. If you're going to have a classic burial, then they'll have to put you on ice for a while in order to arrange that. And they're not funny, but they're done in 15-minute increments. And there's a guy in front of you and a guy behind you, and you don't get in the way of either one of them. And it's handled, but it's a beautiful ceremony. There's the rifle shots, the flags being folded, and it's impressive. At the National Cemetery, they use brass plates that are ground level, so they can cut the grass. At the 2 Massachusetts state cemeteries, you can be buried with a stone, a beautiful white limestone. You'll have your name on one side and your spouse's name on the other side. You can be buried together. Somebody can be buried first and the other one can come later and be buried. And the stones are cleaned every year. It's a great site and well maintained. And I have picked Winchendon because at Winchendon you can arrange this before you die. So I figured I would do that just to save my children the hassle of figuring out what to do and filling out some forms and waiting and so forth. So now Winchendon, they will accept reservations, we call it. At Agawam, you also have to be dead first. The VA and the Mass Chapter 115 requires lots of forms to be filled out. If you're a veteran, you should keep your DD Form 214. Excuse me. Every veteran was given one when he was discharged. And he said, what do I do with this piece of crap? And so he's usually mad when he gets discharged. I don't know why. We all are. You know, we want to put it behind us, and we don't want any trail. And so we throw that thing away, and then as we get older and we need it for virtually anything. When I see a person, the first thing I ask for is your DD Form 214. It proves to me that you are a real veteran, not a wannabe veteran. You know, it shows where you served, how long you served, and it shows, most importantly, the type of discharge that you had. If you have a dishonorable discharge, you're not going to go anywhere with the VA or with the state of Massachusetts. Anything above that, you qualify as a veteran. But that's an important document. It's not easy to get. When people can't produce them for me, I give them a website to go to, and it's an exchange of information. It's because they want to be sure you're not a fraudster. And so you have to be a family member or the veteran himself, and they have a way of checking that out to the extent that they can before they'll issue you that. But don't let that stop you from processing it. That's something I can help you with.
I had to go to a third party to get mine because there was a fire in the records, and I think it was in the 70s.
It was in the 70s. It was in Denver. There was this repository.
They all went up in flames.
They all went up in flames.
Yeah.
And it's like 20 years of records. And the 20 years of like the Vietnam veteran type records, you know, the one where there's massive people.
And then when I got it, it was blurry and they just...
and burned on the edges, right?
Yeah. You just barely read it, and but it's good for getting cruise discounts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was a big fad. I had to get a lot of phone calls because veterans wanted some documentation to get 10% off at Lowe's and so forth. And you couldn't get a card unless you signed up for the VA medical system. And that's an easy thing to sign up for. That's one of the simplest forms that they have. And they'll get it, and they'll process it quickly and say, yea, verily, you can be a member of the VA medical system and everything that it offers. We need marriage certificates. If you're going to prove that you're a widow or you have a wife and there's some dependencies that allow you to qualify for more money, we need a marriage certificate. We need a death certificate. If you're a widow claiming to be the widow of a veteran, well, you need to show that he was a veteran with the 214 and that the guy died. And then there's also an annual compensation letter. If you get this compensation I was talking about, service-connected compensation, you get a letter every year detailing what it is, how much it is, and everybody throws that away. And then when they want to get the $400 deduction or $1,000 deduction, then they got to fumble and get that. So those are the sort of 4 major pieces of paper I need. There's tons of others which I'm not going to go into. If it's means tested, which means you have to show that you're at a certain level of poverty, then we need your bank statements and your rent receipts and things like that. That's where it gets complicated. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm just saying, thank you for your service to Jack and to yourself.
Thank you.
Has anyone reached out to you with the food stamp issue? Is there any veterans that have tried, or widows that have talked to you about what's going on?
No, it was on TV before I came here today, the SNAP program.
Well, my son was in the military. He was a gunner in Iraq for 18 months. I'm very passionate about, but I didn't know if there's any veterans looking for something.
Not that have approached me. Now, you have to understand, this is an affluent town that we live in. So to get the SNAP, which is a food support system, you have to qualify, again, a very low means of income. But
Well,
to answer your question,
they might
no.
not even tell you. I mean, if it's Social Security, maybe some people don't even want you to know. If they're just living on Social Security.
Well, if they want any compensation from me, they're going to have to open their finances all the way, you know.
It was just a thought. I just
Yeah.
thought if any veterans in town were,
Or
in the
what?
food pantries, but you said some people are injured, they're immobile. And if
Well,
anybody was-
when they have service-connected disabilities, and if it's sizable, they're automatically making money above the thresholds
Okay.
of those programs.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you.
it's kind of that.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Does service connected compensation,
Yes.
does that cover things like exposure to Agent Orange and? any
Oh,
of the-
most definitely. That's, let me speak to that for a moment.
Yeah.
Vietnam veterans, for a number of years, were subject of Agent Orange. Agent Orange was a herbicide that was dropped out of airplanes. And aside from being dropped out of airplanes on everybody, it's also shipped in containers. And in the stateside here, somebody's got to handle those, and they leak. So there's now we call it boots on the ground. If you just had your boots on the ground, literally, in Vietnam during that period of time, and you have certain diseases which we now call presumptive. It's a lot of cancers. It's children with spina bifida. That's when it crossed over from the veteran to his family. And everything from like high blood pressure is even,
Parkinson's disease.
yeah.
I have several friends that have Vietnam vets.
And so we call that preemptive, and that means you don't have to prove much. So all you know, I don't want to simplify this too much, but you have to prove that you were a veteran. You have to prove that you were in Vietnam, or you were in the waters around Vietnam, or maybe you handled containers at an Air Force cargo place. And once you establish that, if you have these diseases, there doesn't have to be a nexus between the disease and your service. That's a word we use when we're trying to prove that his problem is the cause of his service. You don't have to prove that with Agent Orange. We'll accept it.
Well, they were all pilots,
Yeah.
so. for dropping it. I got it.
Yes, ma'am.
I was gonna ask, what are some services that aren't offered at the state level or the federal level that you think would help if it was funded?
I
Are there
don't
certain
understand the
like
question.
mental health services or things
Well,
that people
the-
ask for?
The mental health services are covered also by the VA. I'll say in the last 5 years, PTSD is a very common ailment now from veterans coming back. And the suicide rate of veterans is extremely high. And they have acknowledged that a lot of this is caused by PTSD, and there's a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists at the VA hospital systems. They've hired hundreds of them, and they're effectively trying to deal with that.
Are there volunteer programs
Yes.
for people
At the-
in town that could
No.
help some, not really?
No, I mean, no. I had trouble giving food away. You know, people will come to me with clothing and food and want to give it to a veteran, and I struggle to find anybody that wants it. I went to Gillette a couple of years ago, I guess it was during COVID, we had boxes of food, but I could go there and load my car up and bring it here. And back then I had more veterans on Chapter 115, and half of them wouldn't take it. So I don't have a lot of outlet for that. I have schools giving me cards that the kids made, and I don't know what to do with them. There is a American Legion in town which has been reinvigorated, and I took it to them, but they're all looking at me like, well, what do you want me to do here? Yes, sir.
So everybody's aware of the migrant shelter that was there?
Can you speak up, sir?
Yeah, everyone is aware of the migrant shelter that was in town until recently, until July.
Yeah.
It was recently turned back to the Department of Corrections, and there's a group of us, like 4 or 5 on a committee, that is trying to get that designated as a veterans shelter. A
Homeless shelter?
Homeless shelter.
Yeah.
Or a medical facility for veterans. And we're hitting a stone wall with
I
the
can
state.
imagine.
Because they don't want, I don't think they want to give it up, but because they want to keep it for contingency for maybe other prisoners or migrants again or anything. Is there anybody you'd suggest that we go to in the VA that could maybe support us in trying to do that?
I can get you, I can't do it here because I don't know the numbers and so forth, but I can give you something. The VA is very concerned about homelessness vets, and it has like a pledge that no vet should be homeless. But it's hard to corral homeless people. They don't all want to be sheltered. And many homeless people have other issues that drugs and mental issues and so forth, so it's a tough thing. But I go to a conference every year, and I have, people coming up to the podium and, call us if you have a homeless person or something like that. Now, I had one once, and I called, and I couldn't get any help. Very frustrating. We don't have many here. I don't know of any here in town. It's a different story in Boston. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to say, are you connected to the RSVP program that provides volunteer drivers?
I know about it, and I've referred it to your agency that you talk about. And I don't think I have anybody who's used it. But yes, and it's funny how these issues are serious in most places, but because we are an affluent, I keep using this word, an affluent community, and we have families that support the veterans. They're not wandering around loose in Norfolk, and they're not unattended in Norfolk. And so these common things, which are a struggle for, some neighborhoods, are not a giant issue here. But we would, there's no way to let a veteran miss an appointment or something. I don't want to be driving everybody in, but, if that's the last resort, I'll do it.
Becky, do you believe that's a way a resident could volunteer to help veterans?
Absolutely.
volunteer for RSVP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
can't
read
remember
that,
what it
your
stands,
handout.
Retired Service RS,
Veteran.
Retired Something Veterans Program.
yeah, I don't know what it means either, but I know it's transportation to,
Exactly,
To
and I
the,
have all that information if anybody
medical
wanted to
things.
volunteer
Yeah.
for veterans.
you
Drive
need
to
drivers,
medical
you frequently need
appointments,
drivers, yeah.
Spouses as well.
Mm-hmm. Anything else before I give up the podium? Okay, thank you.
Well, hi, everybody, again. As I had mentioned before, my name is Karen Edwards, and I am the director of the Council on Aging and Senior Center here in town. And I have been here as the director since July of 2022. And before that, I worked in Natick at that senior center for about 10 years before I came here. And I happen to live in Norfolk, so I love my new commute, or it's not new anymore. I also wanted to introduce who else is with us tonight. And Becky Poynot is here. She is our social worker and outreach coordinator. So she's going to talk a little bit about the services that we can help people with. And chairperson of the Council on Aging Board is Larry Cohen, and he is here as well if you have any questions for him. All right. So I want to start with our mission statement. The mission of the Norfolk Council on Aging and the Senior Center for Active Living is to identify and address the diverse needs of Norfolk residents aged 60 and older, as well as providing assistance to our adult residents with disabilities. A list of our staff is here. I don't know if you can see it from there, but basically I'm the only really full-time staff member at 40 hours a week. And the next person is Debbie Sand. She's our program coordinator, who also does our newsletters, all our programming. She is full-time at 30 hours a week. And then Becky, our social worker outreach coordinator, 20 hours a week. Stephanie, who's our office assistant, is here 20 hours a week. And we have 2 bus drivers. One is Jim Carley, and he is the person that drives the GATRA bus that we have. So that's a bus that it's owned by GATRA, but we're using it and we're allowed to use it as the senior center. And so it's a 9-person bus. It goes out and does grocery shopping every Tuesday, and he can do some medical appointment rides as well. And that is an accessible, wheelchair accessible bus. The second bus is a 21-passenger bus, and our driver for there is Terry Toubeau. So that's fairly new for us that we have the driver. We've had the bus for a long time, but because you need a special CDL license to drive that bus, it's been difficult to find someone who wanted to just do a part-time. She does a couple days a month that she drives people in the bus, but she drives for the kids and she drives for us. So she's a very busy lady. So one of the things we do is we provide programs for those older adults that are 60 plus. I just had a list of sort of examples of those here on the slide. So we have fitness classes, art classes, we have guest lecturers on various topics, table games, we have food events, and we also have, a long time with the food events, we have entertainment, and sometimes we have entertainment on its own. We offer tech classes, and we have reflexology appointments once a month at the beginning Friday of every month. And we also are doing, as I said, day trips with our bus, and we have started offering overnight trips, which I'll get into a little bit further in the presentation. So now I'm going to turn it over to Becky so she can talk about the services that she does.
Thank you. Again, my name is Becky Poynot. I have been a social worker for 19 years, and I moved to Norfolk 7 years ago, and I've been working here for the past 4 years, and I love this job. This is the best job. You get to meet people who have traveled the world, people who have wonderful large families and people who've lived in Norfolk their entire time, and we can talk about what it was like when the horses were going up and down. My favorite part of the job is getting to know all the seniors. Like Karen said, I work 20 hours a week, so it's Mondays and Tuesdays 9 to 4, and then Thursdays 9 to 3. And as you can imagine, I have to pack a lot of information into those 20 hours. So right now, a hot topic is the HEAP program, which is also known as fuel assistance. So I'm the intake site for Norfolk. Everybody who is a new applicant to get heating assistance, that can be oil or electricity, needs to go through me, or they can go to Brockton and interview with somebody, but I highly recommend just staying in Norfolk and going through me. So that process, like Bill was saying, with the bureaucracy, we love our paperwork, so that's kind of the hardest part, is to gather all of the necessary paperwork. But if you make below around, I think it's $67,000 a year, you'll probably qualify for some heating assistance. It is dependent on how many people live in your household. But that funding starts November 1st. And so the kickoff, we've already started doing all those applications. So that's a big deal for us here. SNAP program, also known as food stamps. I'm also an intake officer for that. I do a lot of SNAP applications for people. We're very worried about what's going to happen after November 1st. We're meeting with different committees, trying to figure out how we as Norfolk can come together to help support people who are in need of food. And CHAMP. CHAMP is the state site for public housing. So when you go to the CHAMP site, you can apply for communities like Hillcrest Village or Pine Knoll on Arnold Road, or Section 8 vouchers, things like that. And also, in addition to housing, sometimes the questions about housing are, how can I afford to live in my house any longer if property taxes are too high? I am about to be evicted, what can we do? It runs the gamut. So even though we are an affluent town, we do have these very serious issues going on. A very big part of my job is providing resources for in-home and out-of-care options. I would say most seniors want to age in place. They want to stay in their home as long as possible. So we try to figure out what resources they qualify for, what you need to pay for out of pocket, what's a reliable service as opposed to one that, you might sign up for and they never show up. So we do all of that resource gathering together. And then we do the out-of-home care options. Are you looking at assisted living? Do you want to move to North Carolina and be closer to your children? What do we need to do to make that happen? So lots of the gamut of the questions. We partner with social services, including HESCO, which is HESCO Elder Services. They are our ASAP agency, Aging and Services Access Point. And so they are kind of our umbrella organization that helps provide a lot of services for people, including housekeeping, sometimes transportation, caregiver support. So HESCO has a lot of services and we work closely with them. Most people who get HESCO services make under $40,000. However, there's a sliding scale. If you are above that, you can pay a portion of that and still get services. They have massive waiting lists, so it is an issue. Norfolk Housing Authority, they have a wonderful service coordinator there named Erin Ferguson, and we work closely together to make sure everybody has what they need at Hillcrest Village and Arnold Road. And then the Metacomet Public Health Nurses, Janine Murphy is our nurse here at the center. I do believe she already gave a presentation with the Board of Health. So you've already met Janine, but actually I'm not in my office on Wednesdays, so Janine is in my office on Wednesdays. So we share and we talk a lot about clients and who needs what. She says, this client is basically homebound. Can we get some food to them? Also, we work very closely together. Coordinate transportation to medical and social services appointments with our GATRA Senior Center van or outsource rides as needed. Transportation, I would say, is a very big issue here in town. We're kind of a black hole for services. We don't have a bus. The GATRA Taunton bus service will come and pick you up, but they will only pick you up until 3 o'clock and things like that. And if your doctor's office is not in their route, you're out of luck. So sometimes people are trying to change doctors just so that they can get on a bus route to get there. So it is difficult. And our buses, we have wonderful drivers who are very helpful and trained and wheelchair lifts and things like that. But they also only work certain hours and they don't go to Boston. And so a lot of people have their medical appointments in Boston. Luckily, a lot of those doctors seem to be having satellite offices in Foxborough now, and that's a huge help for us because we will go to Foxborough. But I get a lot of calls about how can I get to my doctor's appointments. A lot of seniors, even though they live with family or they have a tight-knit support group, they're working. And so they don't want to ask their children to take off work in order to take them to the doctor. And a lot of times they have a lot of doctor's appointments. And so maybe they can take them to the podiatrist, but they can't take them to the cardiologist or something like that. So we try to fill in those gaps as best we can. Crisis intervention and emergency aid is needed. It absolutely happens here where people will call in crisis, and I either have to tell them to call 911, or we have a Massachusetts behavioral helpline that they can call, or Riverside Community Services also has an emergency hotline. So we do respond to those calls here. And then, can you see the, yeah, sorry, it's not quite on the screen. Lead and organize powerful tools for caregivers, educational class, solo agers discussion group, and memory cafes. Karen and I are both trainers for the Powerful Tools for Caregivers educational class, which is a 6-week class for people who are caregiving for someone. It doesn't have to be in your family. It can be your best friend. It can be at a distance. I consider myself a caregiver for my parents, even though they're in Texas. So I would say twice a year we try to each run separate classes where we invite caregivers to come, and we have a curriculum that we follow. So that's a great program. Encourage your friends and family to sign up for that when it comes around. And then the Solo Agers discussion group, we started in January, and I'm really proud of it because we have just a wonderful group of people. You can self-define as a solo ager if you are living alone, maybe you never married, maybe your children live far away, but you have a different set of needs if you're navigating this by yourself, the aging process. So at our once a month meetings, we talk about all sorts of things from like how to stay safe. And we had the police come and talk to us and how to stay safe as a single person, or how difficult it is to walk into a room by yourself when you don't have a partner. You don't have somebody to just say, will you come with me to this class for the first time? I don't want to go in by myself. So that still happens when you're 80. It doesn't go away. It sounds a little bit like middle school sometimes, but it's difficult. So, and then memory cafes are kind of popping up all over Massachusetts, and they're a wonderful resource. Once a month here in Norfolk. When did we start? Do you remember?
In June, I think.
In June. A memory cafe is a place where a caregiver can bring the person who has dementia or Alzheimer's, and then it's some sort of a social activity, or often a music, sometimes food, but it's a safe place for people who might not feel comfortable going to regular events in the public, but they feel safe and supported. And it happens here at the Norfolk Library. So I know, Karen, maybe you're going to talk more about that and the grants you got. So that was a great program. And then we also host Shine Counselors every other Friday, also in my office. And Shine is the volunteer insurance counselors. Many of you might know it is open enrollment right now, and people are trying to figure out what the best Medicare plan is for them, and some people were dropped from their plan. And so they need to talk to unbiased counselors who can get them the best plan, often based on what medications they're taking. So I know there's questions and answers at the end, but my favorite thing to do is home visits. I love going into people's homes, and you learn a lot about a person when they invite you in. And the point of contact is often adult children calling, worried about their parents. But it's hardly ever just one thing. If people call and ask for one phone number, and then you probe for a little more information, there's often more than just one thing going on. So that's why I like my job. I like to get to know people. So you can ask me any questions at the end of the presentation. Thanks.
Well done.
I thought this might be a good time to mention that there is a brochure back on the back table besides our newsletter as well, but there is a brochure that talks about our property tax work-off program in town. I don't know if people are familiar with what that is or not, but basically the town has, I think it's 15 slots for people who are 60 and over to actually, it's volunteering, but it's giving you credit. So you get 100 hours at $15 an hour of credit off of your property tax if you participate in this program. And there are, for the initial applications, there are income limits, but if there aren't enough people to fill the slots that are in those income limits, we will then fill them with people that have applied that don't meet the limits, because we don't want to let any of those spots not be taken by somebody. The way it works is it runs from January through December, and we will be starting to send out applications in December. And people can call here and say, I want to get a packet, or they can come in and get a packet. Anyone who's been in the program already will get a letter from me. And with the property taxes that we all have here, it's not $1,500 isn't a lot per se, but it's still something that people can have as credit toward that property tax if they need it. And again, that's for 60 and older here.
Karen, one thing that's not mentioned in here that I heard was the case, is that if you have your home in a trust, you're not eligible for that. Is that true?
In general, yes. There's specific cases where if you are a trustee, there's a different trusts work differently and are named on the trust. It's a little tricky. But if it's always worth, if you have some sort of trust, having us kind of check it over and see whether it would qualify or
And I
not.
think there's a difference between revocable versus irrevocable, because we've gone through that process, and now it's irrevocable.
Right.
Which means technically, even though we have to pay the taxes and the maintenance and everything on the house, technically it belongs to the trust, which means your children or whoever, you've left it. So you're not eligible.
Right, we had a similar situation in our family. Not that my mother ever asked to work for the town and do the property tax program, but she also had a trust. And she paid her property taxes. She paid all of that, even though it was in a trust, and we still couldn't have put her into the program because of that, so.
Was it an irrevocable trust or revocable?
That I don't remember.
I think what you said is if it's irrevocable, you're not eligible.
You're not eligible with that.
Yeah.
What?
and the-
You're not, I have the same thing.
Yeah, but if you have a revocable trust, are you eligible?
Well, it just means you can change it at any time. Once you get, and it's done so that you protect it as an asset. And you have so many years before. In other words, you go into a nursing home and it's costing you $30,000 a month or whatever.
Yeah.
once your home is in an irrevocable trust for a certain number of years, the house isn't yours, it's not your asset anymore, so no one can come after it to
Right.
pay for something.
Right.
So, yeah, it's,
So, but the question I have is, if it's a revocable trust, which you can change, are you eligible for this program then?
well, when I asked the question to the last person that was here, she said no. But I don't know, I know, for me, it was a moot point because it's already,
I mean,
Yeah.
the two different trusts you're talking about, one is protect you against nursing home costs, the other one's to protect you against taxes. So it
well, for
depends on.
either one, I mean, it's just once the trust is permanent, instead of using the word revocable versus irrevocable, once it's permanent and you can no longer make changes in it, technically the house isn't mine. It belongs
No, I
to
get
the
that.
trust.
I guess I have.
So I can't make any changes in it. I'm still responsible for the taxes and for the upkeep and whatever.
I think the assessor's office would be a good place to go
Yeah.
to ask them, where they do work with all the property tax exemptions and programs. Yes.
What about homesteading? I know they have, homesteading if you're, I think there's a senior homesteading.
There is something, we had, was the district attorney's office came in and was talking
Yeah.
about that with people last year.
But would that count, would that affect this?
It's not a question on the application, so.
Shouldn't.
Oh, good.
No.
Yeah, and isn't the homestead too, you don't have to be, I don't think, a senior citizen to.
Right, everybody
Yeah,
does.
because I've had that for years and years and years.
I have flyers, I could go there.
Protection.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
So, as I said, there are brochures back there. I just put those together for the next year, which starts in January. And so if you didn't get one and you're interested, hopefully there'll be some more up there. So we all set with that one, okay. So our department operating budget. So our total budget for fiscal year '26 in the town of Norfolk is $180,000 in salaries, and I have minus $8,000 on there because we were asked to take $8,000 out of a grant to pay $8,000 towards salaries this year. So, it's what, $172,000 in salaries, I guess, from the town. And our operating budget for fiscal year '26 is $10,198. We have a very small percentage of the entire Norfolk budget. Last that we checked, it was 0.038% of the Norfolk budget. So the remaining part of our operating budget is funded by a formula grant, and that comes from the state of Massachusetts. And the amount of the grant that's awarded to us every year is determined from statistics, in this case now from the 2020 census. Prior to that, it was the 2010 census that was used. So what we found is that fiscal year '25, the grant was $40,425, and that was based on $15 per adult resident that's 60 plus, and we have about 2,695 people 60 plus in the town of Norfolk. And so that's where our grant comes from. So there's other things we do to be able to provide services and programs here. So I just listed a couple of additional grants that we used in fiscal year '25. So I had applied for and received Enhancing Digital Literacy Grant for $61,000, of which I bought computers, computer stations, iPads. We have tech instruction, paid for tech instruction. So that was a really great grant to have. Now we have to kind of budget more for the tech instruction piece of it, but we're still offering programs like that. We also got an $1,100 grant from the Mass Council on Aging for those pocket talkers that we were talking about a little bit earlier, that help you hear if you're here for a lecture or something else. And then $7,500 from the Mass Council on Aging for a grant that was called Enhancing Awareness of Our Senior Center. And I'll talk about that. And there is a new grant this year, which is not technically fiscal year. Well, kind of started a little bit more fiscal year '26, but it's for our memory cafe. Also came from Mass Council on Aging, and it's helping us pay for programming and food this year for that. We do have assistance from our friends with the Norfolk Council on Aging. They are a nonprofit 501c3 operation. And I just listed some of the things that they do help with. They support the purchase of the coffee we use here, the daily newspaper subscriptions, and a basic cable subscription. They provide insure and gift cards for us to donate to older residents, so they would give them to Becky, to donate to older residents in need. They offer a weekly $2 lunch on Wednesdays for people, which is well worth the $2. They support one of our weekly art classes, and they also will assist us in a lot of, like, if entertainment programs are quite costly, they'll help provide some payment toward that program as well to help us. And so it's really great to have that organization. So new partnerships. This year we formed a partnership with Colette Travel, and we just come back from, it's myself and the library and the recreation department. So we partnered together and offered this trip. The one that we just got back from was Iceland. We just got back like a week ago, and it was a wonderful trip, and Colette did a really great job. They planned everything, and we didn't have to think about anything while we were there. So next year, and there was also some brochures in the back on the table earlier tonight, that we are doing Painted Canyons of the West, which is going out from May 10th to May 18th, and Sunny Portugal, October 15th to October 24th. We've already done an info session at the library for the Painted Canyons trip, but there's always a way that on the brochures it tells you our local travel agent that you can call, and you can take the brochure and ask for additional information about those trips as well. What's I going to say? So we're excited about that. And we had about 34 some odd Norfolk, either Norfolk resident or friend of Norfolk resident on that trip. So it was really nice to be like a lot of people we knew there. And there was about 10 people that were from Florida that were from a small group of 10 that were with it. But they were great too. So it was a really fun trip. And another partnership that we have with the library now is the Memory Cafe that we've been talking about. And it's usually the fourth Wednesday of the month, and it goes from 11 to 1:30. We have it at the library because they have a nice space that we can do that in. And in November, however, we're running it on the 3rd because the fourth Wednesday of the month is the Thanksgiving holiday. So there'll be a little bit. But I usually send out a Facebook post or put in the flyer the dates in, and I usually know in advance too who's going to. It's usually an entertainer, who it is and what they're going to be doing. We've used people that come here to the senior center for entertainers there as well. So some statistics. We offer 15 fitness classes per week. We run at least one every day. Every morning there's a strength training program that is, it's a video, but I'll tell you it's popular. This room is full of people doing it every morning. And we've had that for quite a while. And that one's free. Our other fitness classes are $4, like a drop-in, that you just come in and you pay $4 a class when you come, or if you don't want to carry $4 around with you every time you come in, we have what's called a wallet, and you can give us what you want, $12, $10, $20, and we'll put that on your wallet, per se, and then you can just come in and go back and forth to class, and we'll just deduct it as we go. So I did some reporting too, and so from January through September of 2025, we have offered 1,140 recreation and socialization events. That's a huge mix of a lot of what we do. There was 13 cultural events and 8 community education events, and they are sort of split into these categories by the person who enters. When we're doing the entering of the programs into our system, it kind of makes a determination of where those programs fall. Also, some reporting we did is we looked at January through December of 2022, and for that time period we had 9,184 duplicated program and services sign-ins. So what that means, duplicated just means that doesn't mean 9,184 different people came here. It means that those people all told, however many there were, signed up for a total of 9,184 classes in that time period. So 5 of those numbers might be Carol came in 5 times. Should that be counted 5 times in a duplicated number? And then we looked at the unduplicated numbers too, well, wait, I was gonna go on. So this year, from January through September, we had 13,015 duplicated sign-ins. So it just kind of shows you the growth that we've experienced in the last several years. And then we also ran unduplicated people per month, or there's 646 unduplicated people. So that's closer to 646 people come during that time period to the center. That's what unduplicated is. And I think my slide ran off too. And then January through, no, it's off there too. Let me see. Whoops. Nope. Wrong button. Where was I? Right here.
There you go.
Oh, the right one. So, actually, I have this right in front of me. I should be able to look up what's missing on this slide. So we can see the 646 unduplicated people from January through December of '22. The most active month at that time was October, where we had 272 different people come in for programming and services. And then this year so far, January through September, we have 706 unduplicated people. And our most active month was April this year so far, with 374 different people coming in and accessing our services. So something interesting is that I just mentioned our enhancing awareness of our senior center grant that we received. And so that grant allowed us to work with the market because we're trying to make sure people know that we're here and what kind of programs we have here in Norfolk, because out of 2,650 people, we could still help some more. So they helped us create a new logo and a new name for our building. So you can see it right there. Norfolk Senior Center for Active Living, which is kind of trending with what other centers and council on aging are doing throughout the country, but especially in the state of Massachusetts. And we welcomed 144 new participants so far in 2025. We love new participants. And also, did you know that we have not increased our building staffing levels or hours since 2022 and have not had any operating space expansion since 2003 when the senior center was just here. We were going to offer a tour of the building. Should we do that, or well, let me go on for a bit, but we can do a tour after this if people would like. So here's some examples of some volunteer opportunities. Council on Aging board members are volunteers. Anyone who wants to lead a program. We have friendly visitors that work with Becky to visit people in their homes. And right now we're running our fall leaf raking program where we have volunteer groups volunteer to go out and rake the yard of a senior. So I did add a slide on logistics and funding challenges for fiscal year 26. So one of our challenges right now is the parking lot. It also has been here since 2003 and there has been no change to it since then. So as you can see below that, residents 60 plus in Norfolk have grown from about 5.5% of the population in 2000 to about almost 25% of the population now. So there's a lot more people coming here and a lot more people that need to park. We only have 2 marked accessible parking spots here. So even though there's some along the front, when the building was built, they put just 2 accessible spots there. So that doesn't leave much for a lot of people that could use that. It's too small. If it was daytime, you could see, but we sometimes get to the point where people are using all the spaces in the lot. They're driving over a hump at the end of the lot into a big gravel area behind it, and or parking in the fire lanes. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with right now, and we're hoping to be able to enlarge it at some point, but we're still a little bit ways from that. But it is definitely a challenge for us to see that happening and seeing people that are canes or walkers trying to go from a gravel area to the door is rough. We do have interior space issues too. Becky's office, as she mentioned, is used by her 3 days a week. Janine 1 day a week. The Shine Counselor on Fridays, several times a month, and then our reflexologist also uses her office on Fridays. And Debbie, our program coordinator, does our newsletters and everything. she has, well, if you go on the tour, she has a little cubicle out in the middle of the programming area where she works. So we're in storage is a little bit tough too. But those are kind of challenges for us right now. I also, so before, if people want to go on the tour, we can do that, but there was someone, and we want to take questions, but there was someone who sent some questions in through the town administrator's office. So I wanted to be able to answer that for whoever sent them in. So there was 2 questions. They were both really centering around the kitchen area. And so the first question was, can the town budget pay for the equipment and upgrades required for Norfolk seniors to prepare and serve food from the senior center's kitchen? So I checked with the facilities director about this yesterday, and he said it would most likely be something that would be put into the capital budget in order to be able to do that, if the town was going to do that. And there's nothing budgeted for this currently, and if he could do an investigation to determine what the actual cost would be to do that, if the town was willing to do that. So the second question is a little bit longer. Approximately how many Meals on Wheels per month are processed through the Norfolk Senior Center? Does HESCO using our kitchen limit what we can do in our kitchen? And what caused the kitchen to not qualify for food preparation to be served and eaten on site? So I think Becky already I was going to explain to everybody what HESCO is but Becky sort of went into that already. But HESCO is
Question was just asked, where's the kitchen?
kitchen?
It's behind these
Oh.
2 closed doors in the louvered.
you can kind of see it a
Pass-through
little
window.
right through those doors, right through there. So HESCO comes in to get their Meals on Wheels ready to send out with drivers here to Norfolk. Rentham they go to Rentham and do that there, in different towns, have them in their town, and in their senior centers as well. It's not unusual. So I'm trying to So they do provide those Meals on Wheels, and we are fortunate to have volunteer drivers that do that program for them. And as, again, Becky mentioned, like the qualifications that you would need to get it. And volunteer drivers will deliver a hot lunch to people. As a matter of fact, I think there's someone here, if he's still here, or maybe he left, that is a volunteer driver. And sometimes they deliver a hot lunch every day to the person, but also sometimes they will deliver, it depends on the person and their needs, but they might get a couple of hot meals or a couple of shelf-stable meals that they can have in the house, because maybe they can't prepare food for themselves over the weekend, and it kind of gets them through the weekend. So HESCO delivers to approximately 25 individuals in Norfolk at the moment, which translates into approximately 500 home-delivered meals in Norfolk a month. They also provide grab-and-go lunches for the people that live at Hillcrest Village if they want that. So Erin from Hillcrest Village comes and picks up the grab-and-go sandwiches that they have and brings them back on Thursdays, and anybody there that wants to order one gets one. The question about HESCO and us being in the same kitchen. If the kitchen is being used by the town in the morning on an intermittent basis, HESCO can provide 2 hot lunches to each person the day before. So in other words, if we occasionally wanted to do food prep and things in there, HESCO would just give those people 2 hot meals the day before that event, and then they would have those lunches. Part of the problem, though, with that is that the people that deliver meals, not only is that volunteer job delivering meals, but they could be the only person who has contact with the senior that day. And so part of what happens if you're a Meals on Wheels driver and you get to somebody's house and you try to get them and they're not coming to the door, you have to let HESCO know that this person is not responding, not coming to the door. And then HESCO then in turn does a little bit of investigation. They start calling themselves. They'll call the emergency contact sometimes. And then if worse comes to worse, because they may be in there from a fall on the floor, they will have the fire department do a safety check. So that's why it's good for them to get the meals every day for that purpose as well. And Board of Health does have regulations that wouldn't be met if HESCO and the senior center were preparing food at the same time in the same location. So in other words, somebody's cutting up something over here or moving food over there, and somebody's got nuts, and so it's cross-contamination is sort of what the Board of Health thinks about that kind of situation. But there's no reason why the senior center couldn't prepare the food either before HESCO arrives in the morning, or after HESCO leaves, or after their volunteer drivers have gone out with the food. And so that would be definitely, again, it would have to be Board of Health regulations, but as far as being able to do it in the kitchen where HESCO is. So, and then the question about what caused the kitchen to not qualify for food preparation, that happened a long time ago, so I'm not aware of what actually caused the kitchen to stop serving, because I know they did at one point cook some things here and make them and give them to people. I can look into that. I have to just look into some people that know the history, but I just got the questions yesterday, so.
So I'm confused about, it's not approved, the kitchen is not approved to have both of them there side by side, the center and
Correct.
HESCO.
Well, and none of the kitchen apparatus works either. It has been inactive for years, and so.
Because,
This was before I started. So at some point along the line, they
they're
stopped.
broken?
Well, some are broken.
Okay.
There's a vent that goes up through, the one that goes over the cooking area that goes up into the ceiling. That's definitely broken and needs to be replaced.
Okay.
The other units they need a lot of refurbishing, but they might actually work. So that's a little bit of a cost issue. That would have to be that's the budget part, really, if we were talking about the town budgeting
There's also a
it.
second budget issue, which is depending on who you have doing the food prep and the service, there'd have to be people to do that. Either volunteers or you'd have to pay people to come and do that stuff.
Okay, I was having a hard time following what you
Yeah,
were saying.
sorry,
Because you're saying HESCO does prepare food here.
It comes
They
in.
don't, you drop it off.
It used to be like where you kind of spooned everything in and did the trays, but then COVID changed that. So it does come in, there probably isn't a great amount of
Like a transfer
contamination.
station sort of thing, or
Yeah.
mid-station?
We have to keep we have a refrigerator and freezer back there, so HESCO has one side, and we have another, we're not supposed to intermingle our
Right,
foods at
yeah.
all.
I'm in food
yeah,
business, so
yeah.
I understand all those fun permits you have to try and get. So,
Yes.
like, are you warming station permitted? I mean, or is it just literally, it's not even preparing food
It sounds
here?
like it's boxed. It sounds like it's boxed and they just pick it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, everything's
Think of
off,
a
like
TV
the gas
dinner
has been
that's hot.
disconnected.
It
That's
got
what I'm
delivered
thinking.
here hot.
Yeah,
They go in the warmer.
Well,
Okay.
yeah,
Goes
and then
It
The
gets warm
warming
here.
Good warm.
if they have to keep, Jimmy is the person from HESCO that works here, and so when he comes in, the meals do come in from a caterer, and then he has to like take temperatures of everything and manage it.
Yeah.
And keep it in, there is special, that's theirs, so that's HESCO, so to keep the food warm.
Yeah.
Before it goes
Okay.
out for delivery.
It's just I was having a
Yeah.
hard time following it, so that makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, I just wanted to clarify.
So is the ultimate goal to have the kitchen repaired to the point where volunteers or whomever could prepare foods for activities that you have here, or is that?
Sure, I mean, food is a great thing. We try to do food at different events because people, they need it. And so that would be, definitely would be wonderful if we could do that at some point. It's, it's the budgeting issue of how to get the whole kitchen ready and up and to operate, meeting Board of Health requirements, as we're working alongside the HESCO for a little bit of the day. And then just knowing who's in charge of the kitchen and running it.
But if nothing works in the kitchen, and you're saying you're side by side, and you can't go in there because they're working in there, how are you in there? Like, I'm confused.
Well, we're not in there right now, but we had a Board of Health person come out last year when we were talking about this too. And that particular Board of Health person did not want two food operations being prepared at the same time.
Have you called Board of Health and have them come back out and?
Well,
We talked to the Board of Health recently.
At this point, we don't have a working kitchen, so we can't, we have.
Yeah, we did.
If you want to get a working kitchen first, and I hate to say it
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
then you'd be able to start worrying about
Right.
food preparation and whether HESCO's in there or not in there, or what
Okay.
to do it.
Have you checked out how much it would cost to get that up and running? Has anyone done any sort of assessment?
Well, the Friends organization thought this year that they may be able to help finance that. And so they did start doing some investigation and it was going pretty well, but then that unit that goes over the frying area and out the roof, that's a very, very expensive
It
unit.
is, yeah.
So that kind of stopped the process because it was, I can't remember now, it was at least $8,000 and possibly more. because it has to be lifted up with a crane and everything. So that, the Friends sort of stopped what they were doing for the moment anyway,
Okay.
as trying to revive it. Yep.
Some major appliance companies have programs where they actually will donate
Oh.
to things. I know when we were putting NCTV's new space in, I was able to get
Okay.
donations from like General Electric and stuff like that.
Oh, well, I'll go back to the Friends and let them know they might be able to
So-
get it donated.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, and they actually
Okay.
love to do that because then they get the, sponsored by.
Absolutely. All right, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they're very happy to do it, actually.
Wonderful.
They were. a few
What
years ago.
baffles me is if a kitchen, like a stove, in this public school, in elementary school, broke, the town would pay to fix it. Why does not the town pay
Well,
to
yeah,
fix the stove here?
The school actually has a separate budget where, like, so the facilities department does not go in and refurbish or repair any of the school's equipment. The school has its own budget that they hire outside people to come in and do that. So that they would come in and if something was broken, they'd fix it. They'd come out every year and do like an inspection. Certain things need inspections. So the town itself as a whole is not paying for that. It's the school department or the school having that budget in their budget.
So that means we're not a town building?
No, what I'm saying is the town department itself has to have it in their budget to have an outside firm come in and do that work. All the time. So right now, the people from the facilities department can go in there and they can sweep the floor. You know, that kind of thing. But our facilities department doesn't manage the kitchens here or at any of the schools.
But you don't have this printed on the paper, so it seems like it's not a concern
Oh, what were you looking at?
for the kitchen.
Oh, the kitchen.
Yeah.
The selectmen did post on the website that you could submit questions ahead of time to a department to have them answered at their sessions, so.
Yeah, so
Karen
someone
may
put in the
just receive
question,
this
so I
within
wanted
the past 2
to
days.
address that. At the moment, I didn't put it on our list of challenges because we've already been through this like once this year again already, so.
I think, somebody said, you have to put it in your budget. You have to put a request in for it, and even if it's 8,000, 10,000, 20,000,
Yeah.
they know what they're dealing with, and they either vote it up or down,
Yeah.
right? But
It would have
if
to
you
go in
don't-
as a-
If you don't tell them what it is,
Yep,
You'll
it
never
would
get
have
it
to go in
done.
as a capital
Right.
request, yep.
Does Tesco pay for the use of the kitchen?
They do not. We have a contract with them, but they don't pay. I mean, because they're serving the most vulnerable of adults in the community, none of the agencies, none of the senior centers charge anything for that.
But who makes the money? Who collects the money and isn't it $5 a meal?
For the Meals on Wheels?
Yeah.
It's a suggested donation, so some people do put some money toward it, some people don't. But if they do.
Does it go towards HESCO, or does it go towards
It's
you guys?
HESCO, so the Meals on Wheels drivers sometimes come back with some money and hand it to Jimmy, who works for HESCO, and he brings it back to the home office. In the kitchen? Do we want to take a break at a tour, or do we want to just go into?
Town clerk. Keep going. Yeah,
What's that?
Keep
getting
going with the
going.
talk.
All right.
Yeah, keep going.
Well, I'm pretty much done with my piece, unless there's other questions?
yeah, can I ask one question, Becky? It's a very easy question. We have one food pantry in town,
Yes,
and that's the Baptist Church,
yes,
and that's it.
yes. However, Franklin has opened their doors to Norfolk residents at this point. I don't know how long that's gonna last, but because the need has been so great, they have opened their doors as well.
That's at the old building there on.
I guess.
Bill Card Shop.
Yeah, it was like an old jeweler.
Yeah, it was a card shop.
Yeah.
It's a card shop. It's right on the main street that heads up 140 that heads towards.
What's the
Edmonds.
Shine Club in Norfolk?
And it's quite large, so. The Shine Counselor is Patty Myers, and she is here every other Friday, more in open enrollment. However, all the Shine Counselors are scheduled to the max. They can't even take phone calls at this point. Yeah, it's really, really hard right now.
What are we supposed to do?
Call Medicare, call the national line.
Larry, what does the Council on Aging do? How do you get on it?
So Council on Aging is an advisory board. to the
Please
senior
stand up.
center. Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, can everybody hear me? Okay. Okay. Council on Aging is a volunteer board. We meet monthly, probably 10, 11 times a year. We're more of an advisory board to try to help Karen, and if there's things that come up with the staff. Some of the things that have come up this year that we've worked on includes trying to expand our, besides the marketing stuff that we were a subcommittee on, some of our members, including myself, to help raise awareness at the senior center. We do things like, we actually surveyed, I don't know if you saw us, but we were at like town elections surveying people. I was gonna say thanks Carol for letting us come in, but we had a little table there, and we actually had good results, and we got great information about how we could do more things or become more involved in the town. But how you become a member, and let's see if I get this right. You can come to any meeting, the meetings are open meetings. We have a board of 9 people. We also, that are I won't say mandatory, but we have 9 seats on the board. Right now, we're completely, I'll say, full up with people. We also have, I'll say, associate members, and it's not a voting position, but you can come, you can give your participation. We did have one of our associate members be on this marketing subcommittee, and she was great. Unfortunately, for all of us, she wanted to be a member, but she knew she was moving probably with her sister out of the state, and she did. So there may be reasons why people want to be an associate and don't want to be, they want to be able to participate when they're around and when they want to come to the, help us, do things. I don't know, anything else that you pick up?
Is it select board appointed
That's what I was.
versus elected?
No,
Yeah.
well, it's not, okay, I was just gonna say, I was gonna cover that. If there was an open
Okay.
spot on the board, then what you would do is there is an application which goes to the select board. And then I don't think the select board has ever said no to anyone in my experience anyway. But if we recommend them, then usually the select board just will do that. And then once the select board has officially approved that person, then it's official.
Just one last thing, we do have 3 officers, quote, of the group. One's the chairperson, one is the vice chairperson, who's Cheryl Dunnington, and some of you may know her, she's been involved with the Board of Health in town for a number of years. And right now, we do not have a secretary. I actually joined to be the secretary, and then our chair moved to Tennessee, and I ended up running for the chair. So, right now, we have a rotating, I'll call it secretary, but if people want to, join up and help us be secretary, that'd be fine too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know who to ask, so
Yeah.
I'll just put it out there. It sounds like we're an aging town. We went from 5% to 25% in 20 years, that's what it looks like. What is the average age are we servicing at this point?
Well,
I could go run it real quick.
yeah, that's, we run the gamut. We do work with anything from, any people that are from 60 up to 90, 99. Bucky still comes in, he's 99.
We had someone we just celebrated 101.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, my aunt actually just turned 101,
and she comes to bingo.
and she comes to bingo every week, yeah.
But
So-
can anybody come to this? Any town, Walpole?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Like,
and
anybody can walk
our
in.
residents can go to other senior
Right.
centers as well,
Yeah.
which is good because we don't all offer the same programming. It gives people an opportunity
Right.
to go to Walpole for one thing and
I
us
was
for
gonna say, you do
another.
have seniors that follow the, I'll call it the bingo. We do ours on Monday, somebody does theirs on Wednesday, and
Yeah,
they'll go to different towns.
Oh, yeah, Mahjong and bridge for sure.
The only thing we can't do for people that are not residents is provide services. So like, for instance, Becky's services are for town Norfolk residents, but any of our programs or anything else we have going on here, anyone's welcome to come.
I also want to say that a lot of the services, like the SNAP benefits, CHAMP, fuel assistance, that is for anybody of any age. So you do not have to be a senior to come to me to apply for those things.
I just saw in the mission statement slide, it says that you also provide assistance to adult residents with disabilities. So is that mean of any age?
It is. The school covers people who are 21 and under, and we help people who are above that. I will say, it's a lot of overlap with the seniors, that they are 60 plus and disabled. And the main thing we do for people who are younger is transportation. But I do help people apply for Mass Health. I help people apply for disability. So back to that paperwork.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Carol Greene. I'm your town clerk. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I brought with me Rebecca Teft, who is your assistant town clerk. So a little bit about me. I've been in town for about 35 years. My husband is actually third generation Norfolk, so I think he probably qualifies as a townie. I'm not sure. I have one daughter that went through the Norfolk and KP school system. I started working for the town in 2010 as the records clerk in the town clerk's office. From there to the assistant town clerk, and then I was elected town clerk in 2014. The town clerk's term is a 3-year term, so I run for office every 3 years. I'm the only paid elected person in the town of Norfolk, and I appoint the assistant town clerk per Mass General Law. The assistant town clerk has all the same powers that I have, so in my absence, she's actually I have to register with the Secretary of State's office so that her signature, if I'm not here, is as good as mine is. So if I'm out for a period, there's still continuity. Things still get done. I'm not totally rogue. I follow the non-union compensation schedule, as well as, days off, the same as everybody else that's employed in the town. I'm not separate from anybody else. The only difference is our interim town manager town administrator had said this on the first night, my office is not under any of the other things in the town. I'm not under the town administrator, I'm not under the select board. Most of my governing comes from, although I work with the interim town administrator, the select board, all the other departments. Most of my oversight comes from the Secretary of State's office and the Attorney General's office. If things don't get done, I would hear from them. Luckily, I haven't had to hear from them. So my department has myself, full-time town clerk, and a 32-hour assistant town clerk. My contact information is up on the screen. I'm available by email, by phone, either of us are, and if I can't help you, Rebecca can. You just met the team. Good thing you had pictures to compare it to. So, what our department does. This is just some highlights. But I'm the chief election officer for the town of Norfolk, so that means that I facilitate local, state, and federal elections. My office, I manage and preserve the official and vital records of the town of Norfolk. I work with all residents, departments, boards, committees, providing a lot of different functions, permitting, licensing, and support. And then I also currently serve as the municipal hearing officer for the fire department, a parking clerk for the police department, and a board of health agent for burial permits. And I'm also a member by default as the town clerk of the board of registrars. So the town clerk oversees 2 separate budgets. I did have a printout and handed out, hopefully it was in your packet, my 2 budgets, just so you can see the breakdown of what my budgets are. So my total office budget for FY '26 is $168,000, 171. My total elections budget is $39,990. The biggest driver in my office budget is salaries. The elections budget is based solely on and around how many elections that I have for the year. So that budget changes year to year, depending on how many elections that I have. In a presidential year, it goes up quite a bit because of additional staff, and additional needs. On a low year, it drops down. So I have a total overall of I manage $208,000, and then my office is funded by tax revenue. So just a few things that we've done so far this year. In FY '25, we ran 4 elections. One of them was a presidential. Certified 4,393 signatures between nomination papers and petitions. And today we just got another about 600 petitions in that we have to certify the signatures on. So when you're at Walmart and they come up and they ask you to sign a petition, those come to us. We certify the signature as a registered voter of the town and send them back to the people that are collecting the signatures. So we have a pile at the office. So we've also registered 269 new voters, issued or renewed 25 business certificates, processed 141 vital records, birth, death, and marriage, licensed 1,000, actually we're up to 1,699 dogs as of today. We have about 2,000 dogs in town. Renewed 10 flammable storage permits, gave the oath of office to 71 elected, appointed, or reappointed town officials, and we generated $27,503 in revenue. The biggest revenue that's generated by my office is dog licensing. So the town clerk's office, 100% of its functions are mandated and or governed by 73 chapters and 451 sections of Mass General Law, as well as town bylaw. Everything I touch, everything I do is under a law somewhere. And everything that I'm mandated to do is under Mass General Law. No function of my office is discretionary. Oops. I have no hands-on demonstration. Community participation. Members of the community can be involved in our department by applying to work the polls for elections. We rotate workers so as to keep a revolving pool of properly trained election staff, and we actually have a very fine one sitting over there at that table. Kathy Fox actually works elections for me. You've been actually working elections for quite a number of years too, right? And then you can contact my office for details on how to do that. Our poll workers are all, they fill out an application for the town. We have taxes taken out. It's the same as any town employee. So if anybody has any questions.
Anybody else?
Carol gets to bolt. Yes, Donna.
Unfunded mandates. I think of the able to mail in your vote.
Yep.
Did that add to our budget?
Those are, it does. It in postage. If you see my, on my, I don't know, did you guys get a copy of my budgets? I had sent them up to come out in the packet. Oh, okay.
That's a separate sheet, town clerk budget.
That's okay. So my postage for FY '26 for just elections is, I put in for $2,300. It's 1 ounce stamps, and I have to buy 1 ounce stamps, which are, I think, up to like $1.03 a piece or something like that. We're required by the state to mail, to mail them out and to pay for the postage, and the return envelopes are actually metered, and that at least gets charged to the state of Massachusetts. So you're paying for it here and you're paying for it there too. Realistically.
Good question.
Sure.
What is the municipal hearing officer?
What is that?
For the
It says
fire
For the fire
department?
department, parking clerk, what is that job?
So that's not actually, that's just something I do additional to being the town clerk. The town clerk doesn't have to do this. The municipal hearing officer for the fire department is, so if the fire department issues and I actually went to training up at the fire academy for this. If they issue a fine for something, for some,
Like arson?
for anything, some kind of a violation, and the person wants to dispute it, I'm the hearing officer for that. So they'd have to, I'd hear it and make a judgment on whether they had to pay the fine, didn't have to pay the fine. It would be there'd be a whole hearing involved.
It's the same thing as parking clerk, so if someone gets a parking ticket in town and they want to dispute it, they would
Oh,
go
yeah.
see Carol and she would determine.
Oh, okay, because I'm
Yeah.
like, Board of Health, I'm like, who fight, okay.
Yeah.
The other thing the parking clerk does, so we work with a company called Kelly and Ryan. When a parking ticket's issued by the police department, it has to be inputted into a system, like Kelly and Ryan's, that interfaces with the registry. So if you don't pay your parking ticket, when you go to renew your license, you'll pay it then. Then you're gonna pay it.
Okay.
So, anybody else? Oh, Donna?
Do we have records stored elsewhere? Like, backup locations? If
We do
Norfolk-
not. Well,
Sometimes, I remember a while ago, it would be like you'd make them digital and put a digital copy.
so yes and no. We have, I think Ton now, I don't know, and Anita might actually know. I think Ton has backups of our systems that are off-site.
I believe so, but I wouldn't bet the house on it. But
I'm not either. I'm not 100% positive, and I can find out the answer for that for you. But the records that we have stored are actually paper copies and stuff. Everything that isn't handwritten, and I have many books that have the old books, the death records, marriage records, birth records, that weren't able to be digitally scanned because it can't read it, because they're handwritten. Everything that isn't that is stored digitally. But it's stored digitally in-house, so if there's backups that's off-site, then yes, it's off-site, but if not. But I will check with Ton and I'll find out. Rob?
So on your website, you have like every town report from 19-something or other, all digitized in. When did you guys do that and how'd you do it?
So, this was,
Because it's really neat.
Yep.
This was back, Sean Dooley was the town clerk at the time. And he had approached CPC for historical preservation, and got some money from CPC. And what we did was we contract with a group called Gen Code. They're one of the scanning things for municipalities. And we got everything that we could for the money that we had scanned, and then it's just been ongoing since then. Everything that hits my desk, I try to scan in, so that way I can put it up, and Becca actually does all my scanning for me. That way it can be, put up on the website, it can be accessed by the residents. I actually have quite a bit of stuff up on the website, historic, some of the historic stuff, so. But I try to make sure that not only do I have a paper copy, I try to make sure that we also at least have a scanned copy in the office too. But that's how that came to be. And I also, I approached CPC a few years ago and had another project done. Our old birth, death, marriage books were falling apart. The bindings break. They were, so I got more for historic preservation and was able to send all the rest of our old stuff out, had it all rebound. They did deacidification of all the pages, and all the pages are now in sleeves, so that they're protected for the future. So we've done a couple of really good, big projects in the office.
That's a big deal.
It is, yeah. It's important to keep all that stuff, though. I guess there was a fire years ago, and we have a whole section of death and birth, or just death? I think it's mainly death, a whole section that is missing because it burned. So when people call for a death certificate for that time period, we don't have anything.
Like that 30s, 40s range.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, but it shows how important it is to have everything backed up and scan stuff
Where are the old records stored?
in my vault.
The old town hall?
No, in my office. There's a vault in my office, and in that vault stays all of the vital records, pretty much anything that's permanent record, meeting minutes, that type of stuff, and all of my election equipment is all stored in there too.
Is it fireproof?
Okay. The door is. There's concrete walls, so I would say to a point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
It's
that,
closed and
and
locked every night.
the assessor's safe is above mine.
Oh.
So at least from the top down, maybe.
So town meeting, you guys don't need more money, any of that stuff?
From my office, no. The residents of
I know it's tax
Norfolk,
revenue, but I didn't.
I have paced myself on the things that I have gotten from my office, and I'm at a long-range plan now for, my office is good for like 7 to 10 years for any major expenses. It's mainly election equipment that, the poll pads are, good for X number of years. The machines are good for X number of years. And the residents have been incredibly generous when I've asked for anything, and my office is all set for the foreseeable future.
I feel like it's small.
It's very small.
Right.
Stop by anytime.
Yeah,
I'd love to,
yeah.
I will give anybody a tour. I love to show off my, the safe, how we do everything. The other thing is, Becca and I have talked to Andrew, and something we're gonna do over the winter is we're gonna record a video of everything elections, soup to nuts, to shows security, how we check signatures, how we handle things, just everything. We figured it was the best way to have Andrew video it. That way it can be shared, it can be put out there. Just because there's, so much question around elections. We just thought it would be a great idea this is how elections are handled in Norfolk. Just to give you a peace of mind of how we do it. Anything else?
So thank you for coming. Remember, next week and the next week, we are not meeting for the academy because of town meeting. And so we'll meet on November 20th at the Freeman Kennedy School.
Oh.